I like to make things. I like to create things. One may even go as far as to call me a creative person. I like to take ideas, get them out of my head, express them in whatever way. And more than that, it's just like I feel an urge, I feel an impulse, I feel a necessity. It feels as natural to me as doing anything else. Whatever you might do, like, I'm not going to say eating, because like if I go a while without creating something, I'm not going to expire. But, in the same way that you might work or do chores or go to the park or do exercise or whatever else you do, creativity and creating things feels as much as a part of my life as any of those. I've always done it. I used to draw a lot. I was drawing specifically characters and things like this. Maybe earlier than that, who knows? I did a lot of Lego, love Lego, and always making things with Lego. I think I started like writing songs, at least in my head, at least little tunes that maybe even some of them I can remember if I really try, from, I don't know, I was definitely a kid. Then I joined bands. I'm still in art class at that time, but I really moved over to making music. I've made music for many, many years. I've been in wonderful bands. I've played music with amazing people. And now my job's pretty creative. I make websites. I write code for a living. There's a lot of, I guess, creative problem solving in that, but there's definitely some design work in that as well. I took a design related university course. And now, I don't want to blow your mind here too much, but this is me creating. This is me taking an idea, taking an internal thought and making it external, and somehow committing that external thought to something, less transient, less intangible, that will last. For me, that's a lot of what it's about. You take that idea that is ephemeral, completely internal, and you externalize it, and then you kind of take it out of time itself. If something is just a thought, and especially just a passing thought, just an idea, it exists in a very specific moment and for a very short amount of time. And there's something, to me, the magic of creating something is that you specifically, yes, you attach it to a specific moment in time, maybe close to the time that you had the idea, but you also take it out of time. Because especially as things go digital, especially like this is a recorded digital audio file, and I can come back to it whenever, barring the sort of EMPs, like destroying everything and some terrible Matrix-like war destroying all of our hard drives. I can come back to this whenever, and you can revisit that moment in time. And that to me is very, very interesting. But also just to gain a perspective, which is to see the thing that was once inside you from the outside of it. Yeah, absolutely fascinating. So, like I say, I've always done it, and I continue to make music now. And now I'm really enjoying this podcast process, and I'm really enjoying getting into it. And I've been in front of this mic, literally specifically this mic, for a good few years now. And, this relationship of being able to open up and share something and have it recorded, it's pretty magical stuff. And this is, I guess, just a new chapter of that. And I feel, like I say, I feel that compulsion, I feel that need, and I feel that urge. And I don't necessarily have an end goal in mind. Like I'm talking about all that externalizing and taking outside of time, and that's all nice, but that's not necessarily why I do it in the moment. I just feel the need to express, create, make, do. And so I do. And so especially when it came to this podcast, eventually the questions do come to your mind, like, well, why? Because maybe you're a first-time listener, watcher. Maybe you've been here since the beginning. Thank you. Because that does mean a lot. Because you've already seen it change and evolve and different things happen or whatever. But there are episodes before that. There are recordings, there are clips that are just like, it's being in this chair. It's speaking into this mic. Like that. I recognize that you're experiencing this now as the recorded form, as the edited form. And I'll get to do that as well. But I'm also here right now in this moment. It's just me in this moment, in this room, with this microphone. And there was a time before I started putting things on YouTube that's all it was. And that's all it was about. And so suddenly you've got these recordings, you're like, well, or I'm like, what should I do with them? What's next? What's the thing to do? What is the, where do these recordings go? What is their purpose? And obviously, or rather, it seems obvious that the next stage is, well, somebody else should see them. And if somebody else should see them, then sort of reasonably, anybody else should see them. And so, you get them out there. And for this particular thing, I put them on YouTube, nice and easy to upload, nice and free to upload. On like the music front, like put many things out in many different forms, but once upon a time it was fun to put things on MySpace. I got stuff on Bandcamp, on SoundCloud. So it's nice to put it up there. And again, it's like, then you don't have to open up some file on your desktop, but now there's a website you can go to. Me, myself, I go to that same website and I view the stuff, but also now you can share that with someone else. So you send it to a few people and that's great. But that's where I hit a wall. Because I don't know how to promote. And whilst it comes very, very naturally to me, like I might not necessarily be making anything good. Like, it's obviously impossible to objectively say that, but I know that I'm good at making. I know that I can create and make stuff, and definitely with this whole scenario, it's a whole new creative process, and I'm really enjoying it. And so I know that I can create stuff, and I know that I'm good at creating stuff. Again, the goodness of the stuff to be debated. But when it comes to promoting the stuff, I don't know what I'm doing. And it's a total mental block. It's just a language that I don't speak. And I think I noticed this most acutely, I think, in my actual, the job that makes me money, as it were, the creative pursuit that makes me money, which is coding, which is development. Because obviously you make, like I like what I do, which is building the websites and in some part designing, or having a part in designing what the website that is being built is. But then there's the other whole aspect to it, which is like, I'm going to throw some terms at you here, so stay with me. SEO, as in, where does this website appear? If I type in some specific words into Google, where does this website appear? Is it first page? Fucking better be, or you failed. And there's things you can do on the website itself to make that, allegedly, to make that more likely. And that's SEO. 9 times out of 10, it comes down to the contents of the site, and I got nothing to do with that. So take some responsibility, but I really don't even think about it. Do you know what I mean? Like, I know what the technical things I can do are to be a good website, and more Google values that kind of stuff. So that's great for me, but that's what I focus on. I don't think about I design and I build the website for 1 visitor and for 1 million visitors. And hopefully they have an equally good experience. But never does the thought cross my mind of how is it going to get to 1 million visitors? Like, what? I build it, and in my mind, I just think they will come. And I know, saying that out loud, I know that's demonstrably not true. I know that's a naive thought. But it still doesn't inspire me to think beyond that and to think about how they will make it there. So the SEO, I don't give a fuck about. The analytics, like watching who comes to the site and from where and what was their journey through the site, I don't care. It just doesn't interest me. Maybe it should. Maybe I'd be a better, richer, more successful developer if it did, but it doesn't. So there's my secret truth, okay? I don't care about website I do care about website performance. I don't care about in terms of like how many users are visiting. I care about each individual user not having a bad time, but I don't care about how they got there or how to get them there more specifically. So I'm creating the thing. I enjoy making the thing. I like putting the thing out into the world. And then that's pretty much where it stops for me. But then the irony is, I think about how awesome it would be if it were to be a success. So I'm, in the case of the website still, I build it as if it's going to be the biggest website of all time that everybody in the world is going to visit every single day. And I think about how great that will be. And I think about each of their experiences. And I try to optimize for everything, every case scenario. And I try to think of, there are web awards, and I think of like winning those awards. But I don't do anything to get the eyes on it, to win those awards or have that kind of traffic on my site. And I put up my podcast onto YouTube, and then I don't think about telling anybody about it. I put my music up onto SoundCloud, onto wherever, and I just don't know what to do next. It just doesn't compute. It doesn't inspire. It doesn't motivate me. Once it's out there, that's it. I just don't know how to take that next step and to get people to enjoy the thing that I made, even though I want them on some level to enjoy the thing that I made. Because otherwise, why have I put it out there? Why have I shared it with everybody if I don't ultimately want somebody, everybody, anybody to enjoy it? And is that what I want? I remember, especially when I, as I say, started to write songs when I was much younger, which were just me humming and whatever, and just regurgitating what I heard on the radio, what I guess that's still what writing music is. But I guess I used to want to be famous. I used to imagine myself on talk shows. And as I've said that, I realize that's what I'm doing right now, is I'm just fulfilling my dream of being on a talk show. But there's obviously an element of fame on that. Like, you don't get invited onto, well, I think I would have been imagining Parkinson and then Graham Norton, obviously the great Graham. And you don't get invited onto that unless you've done something of note. You are of note. You're bringing out something, right? You're promoting something, whatever. And obviously, you look good. You've got famous friends, etc. Those are the circles you move in. So it's not just like, oh, this guy's written an interesting few songs. We'll get him on Graham Norton. So there's obviously there was a hope for an element of fame, and I can't say that I don't like that. That would be great. I love the idea of being interviewed by Graham and sitting next to Tom Hiddleston, and I don't know why he came to mind. Some other celebrity, Jennifer Lawrence, lovely. I feel like that's who I see in clips all the time. Sounds smashing, right? And I would prepare jokes in my head and stories to tell and anecdotes to impart. And I would always think about like, oh, I wonder what they would ask me and what I would be promoting. And that was always in my head. And it seemed like a natural consequence of like, well, if I create good enough, if I write good enough music, if I don't know, I think at some point I imagined I might like be a famous actor of star and stage, that I would be famous for those things, creative endeavors, and be interviewed as such. And so, like I said, I've skipped the being famous part and I've gone to being interviewed, and I'm being interviewed by myself. So just a whole whirlwind of arrogance there. But what I found really interesting was realizing that almost every celebrity, and I'm going to age myself and I'm going to say, especially now in this age of social media, almost every celebrity says it sucks. Right? Obviously, it's dope to be an A-lister, as in like rich, popular, invited to the fucking best parties. All right. Take for granted all of those nice things about being an influential, a famous, affluent person. But everyone agrees the fame itself sucks. Like knowing that, well, everyone seems to present, maybe that's a whole PR line unto itself. Maybe it's good PR to be self-effacing and talk about fame as if you're like, oh, it's such a burden. But the paparazzi and the people writing things about you and people knowing way too much about you and people camping outside your home. So that aspect of the fame is not... It became clearer and clearer over time that it's like... I mean, it sounds like a fucking nightmare, right? And you see... what's that fucking video of like Tobey Maguire getting bothered by paparazzi and like losing his shit at them? Like that would be me the first time a camera was turned on me without my permission. I'd lose it. I'd just be like, what the fuck are you doing invading my space? And why are you camping outside my house? And whatever, right? There's no way that I am set up to deal with that. So I don't want that. But I do like the idea of being recognized for what your work is good for. So then you discover like artists like, I don't know, I'm fascinated by like, I guess it's more of an EDM thing, but like artists that have masks. Amazing. Like, because the anonymity is so interesting and so exciting. You're known for the entity, or like even not necessarily Mars, but people like Banksy and Burial. Maybe Burial, people found out who he was eventually. Maybe, can't remember. But to be known for your artwork and known for your art and known for what you do and be a household name, and in both of those cases a singular name, an artist's pseudonym, mononym, one of the above, and not do the whole thing of being famous and being like, judge me for me, or form your opinion of me, a human being. So you are an entity, but you're not sort of relatable and identifiable in that kind of way. That's fascinating. And that eventually over time, brings more and more appeal, or brought more to me. And yet, like you don't interview Banksy, right? So Banksy's not on Graham Norton. Burial is not going to go on radio, whatever, 1-6, name one, and talk openly and honestly, because then immediately you're humanizing yourself and you're opening yourself up as an individual rather than as the artist. And so that seems to, part of that satisfies me, another part of it doesn't satisfy me. But the point is that, I recognize at some point, that maybe those are the things I want, but I'm not good at doing that, and I'm not good at playing that game. And in many ways, I don't want to. In the same way that I feel no inclination towards the SEO and the analytics of website building, when it comes to the more, obviously creative things like music and this, I don't want to do the self-promotion. And there was a brief time in history where my main band, my true love, my most devoted commitment, Zygo, shout out to all of you. There was a brief moment in history when we were, heavy quotation marks, signed. And there came a time in that history when we had finished our first album and we were looking to promote it. And I switched off. I was done. We'd done what I came there to do, which was commit our work to tape. And it sounded amazing. And I was so pleased with everything we'd done and everything we put into it. And I was kind of like, okay, great. We're going to press the CD. I'm going to take one home. Fantastic. And that was that. And the label, quote unquote, asked us to write a press release for the record that we were putting out. And we just copied and pasted and slightly fluffed up a blurb that had been on our website, and we put it on the top of another few things for a while, and kind of made it specifically about this particular release in this particular moment. And it was just very typically us and the way we used to write things, and like it just fitted our mood because that's who we were as a band and that's who we were as people, and we were expressing ourselves very genuinely when we wrote this. And so that's why we kind of repurposed this piece of text for this particular moment. And I just remember the kind of one of the heads of this label reading this thing and just going like, yeah, I don't think we can put this out. Yeah, I don't think this is going to work. And I just remembered that my response was, like, whether I externalize this or not, my response was good. Good. I don't want to play the game. I don't want to do the thing that is expected of us. I don't want to fit in the box, or I don't want to tick the box. I don't want to put out generic press release 01. Because when I looked down at this thing that we'd written, I heard us. I felt us. And that's what I was looking for. And in that moment, I knew what I felt was genuine, and I felt good about it, and I laughed, but I still felt good about it. And also what I understood was I don't fucking understand marketing or rather, I'm not good at it. Because what I wanted to do was be as unabashedly us as possible. New listeners be damned. And what I had been asked to do and what I needed to do and what we needed to do was put out a press release that made our latest record marketable, palatable, and gain us new listeners. And there was just this disconnect. And that's when I think, moments like that make me realize I'm not good at it. I don't understand it. And crucially, I don't want to do it. So, I'm stuck. Because I thought that record was great. And I wanted people to listen to it. I still do. And I still listen to it. Maybe not as much anymore. It's a bit older now. But I how can I make those two things make sense in my head? And I guess that I can't is the answer. And I guess that's the contrast of me being who I am. Because I think what I really want is for people to enjoy it into and of themselves. And this doesn't just apply to creativity, it applies to whatever. But I think that genuine enjoyment of something never comes from being asked to enjoy it, being told to enjoy it. I think recommendations, I understand. If someone's like, hey, Tom, you should check this out. And I check it out. I'm like, oh, this is great. That's awesome. But I just don't. I think that it's really important for the authenticity of someone's reaction that it is genuine, that it is unforced, that it is uninfluenced. And if so, what I'm trying to get them to enjoy is my shit, then I can't be the one being like, enjoy my shit. And that's my own problem. That's something that I need to deal with. But here I am discussing it. So here I am being honest with you. But it's almost like if you listen to that music, if I'd written that press release in such a way that I'd almost tricked people into listening to it, and then they listen to it, and it's almost, in my head, it's like, we haven't gained a new listener. We've just gained another victim of my trickery. What I've shown is not that the music is good. It's not that the record is worthwhile listening to. It's not that we achieved something as a band and I achieved something as a musician within that band. What I achieved is that I managed to fool someone into liking something against their will. And as you can tell, if things go like that, and if that's how things end up in your mind, then for obvious reasons, as a creative person, that's not what you want. That's not the outcome that you wanted. So as you can tell, just from that description alone, I'm not cut out for marketing. And I've ended up in the promotion of my music and in the promotion of my creativity and the promotion of this podcast, just doing things that I want to do. And I like them. And I like looking at them in the same way that I like the creative thing itself. Like for that same band, when we'd put out more music, and then we had all this artwork collected together. And I completely took over our Instagram by lining all those artworks up and cutting them into the grid and doing all this because they're all square. You know, it all made sense to me. And we must have got like 3 likes total on what feels like hundreds of posts of all the artwork split up into rows and columns and all like this. Like minuscule number of people engaging. But I like it. And I look at it and I think of the marketing itself as a creative endeavor that I'm as pleased with as the very thing that it's marketing. And that's why I'm just no good at it. That's why I'm just not cut out for it. And that's why I don't know what I'm doing here. Okay? I appreciate you listening. I appreciate you tuning in. And if you've been paying attention, I appreciate you forgiving me for this break in making content and following me along anyway. But I don't know how to get the word out there. So when it comes to telling you to like and subscribe, that's all I know how to do. and then I'm fucked. But I still know that I want people to think of me and think of this as a successful podcast, something they enjoy listening to. But the fact of the matter is that I mention it. I mention what I'm doing. And I say, oh, I'm making a podcast. And people ask me the very reasonable question, oh, what's it about? And I say, I don't know. And they say, why should I listen to it? And all I can say is, I don't know. And so I appreciate you listening. And I hope you'll stick with me on this journey. And I hope we'll work out answers to all those questions. But the truth is, I don't know. I just like doing it. And that's what I think the problem is.